Hey guys, tonight we drift back into the final hours of a man who tried to outlive time itself. You're in Babylon, in a palace too large to feel warm, too quiet to feel safe. And in the center of it lies Alexander, still breathing, for now. The incense burns low. The gold reflects nothing but worry. His generals hover like anxious shadows in silk. And you're just here to watch. Historians still argue about what really killed him. Poison, malaria, drinking contests gone very wrong. Honestly, he was 32, had conquered most of the known world, and had a sleep schedule worse than yours. Anything could have done it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me, where are you listening from, and what time is it? I'm always curious who's falling asleep with history in their ears. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing at the edge of the king's bed. The sheets are soaked. His breath is shallow. No speeches, no roaring final command. Just the slow, invisible tug of time pulling him back. And then something strange happens. His lips move, not toward a servant, not to demand wine or scribes. He's whispering to himself, to someone far away, maybe to a boy, maybe to the boy he used to be. And just like that, you're no longer in Babylon. You're falling, gently, through memory, through time, through his eyes. You feel it before you see it. The heat of Macedon, the sharp smell of oil and dirt, the distant thud of wooden swords in the training yard. He's there, a child, barefoot. Eyes brighter than the gold he will one day drown the world in. A teacher's voice rings out. Aristotle, if you're wondering. Yes, that Aristotle. Teaching a boy who interrupts every sentence, not out of rudeness, but out of hunger. Hunger for meaning, for answers, for maps without borders. He doesn't want bedtime stories. He wants the origin of stars. You watch as he sketches battle lines in the dust, names constellations, argues about ethics. This isn't just a boy. This is a boy rehearsing for immortality. And the world, it's not ready. Fast forward, because dreams work like that. Now you're in a sunlit courtyard. A young Alexander stands in front of a wild, foaming black horse. No one can tame it. Everyone's already declared it too dangerous. His father shakes his head. But Alexander, he doesn't try to control it. He simply turns the horse to face the sun, so it won't be scared of its shadow. Yeah, that's real. That actually happened. That moment, that's when everyone started realizing this kid doesn't see problems. He sees angles. You blink. Now you're back in Babylon. Alexander's chest barely rises. The room has changed. The air has thickened. You realize this isn't a deathbed. It's a doorway. And what's waiting on the other side? Not peace, not quiet, but every memory, every ghost, every city still bearing his name. Here's the thing they don't tell you about legends. They don't die all at once. They unravel, slowly, thought by thought, regret by regret. And in this moment, this impossible hush, you begin to see what he sees, a map in flames, friends gone, victories that taste like ash. You'll get to those soon. But for now, stay here with him. One more minute. Let him rest. Let the memory hold. Because tonight, you're not just listening to a story. You're stepping inside a life that still echoes. Even after 2,300 years, the dream does not break. You're still with him, still floating through memories he never meant to share, still walking the dusty paths of a boyhood that's already rewriting the world. Now you're in the palace courtyard again, but everything is sharper. The colors, the voices, the questions. Aristotle sits under a fig tree, robes slightly wrinkled, nose in a scroll, pretending not to be waiting. But he's waiting for him, and there he is, 11 years old, hair wild, feet dirty, carrying a rock for some reason. You watch him plop down beside the philosopher and ask, if the soul is immortal, why do we get stomach aches? Historians still wonder how much Aristotle actually influenced him. Some say Alexander ignored everything. Others claim he turned the world into one big classroom. The truth? Probably both. But in this moment, the boy is listening. Not just hearing. Listening. Aristotle answers the question about stomach aches with a laugh and something about moderation, Alexander promptly ignores. He's already moved on to asking why rivers don't flow upward. There's something electric about it. The way he stares, like the world owes him a secret, and he's going to chase it until it screams. You lean back against a pillar and let them talk. The boy, the mind, both orbiting each other. One trying to pass on wisdom, the other trying to break it open and wear it like armor. Later, you walk with him through the halls. He's holding a small scroll now, something about ethics. But honestly, it's being treated more like a sword than a book. Everyone should be good, he mutters, but if they're not, I should stop them. Philosophy. But with stabbing, he catches you looking and grins. You realize something. He knows he's being watched. Maybe not by you exactly, but by history. Even as a child, he acts like someone is taking notes. You follow him outside. The guards open the gates without hesitation, because of course they do. He's the prince, but he doesn't walk like one. He walks like a commander in training. Steps fast, chin up, constantly scanning. You pass the training yard. He pauses, watches two older boys sparring, then tosses the scroll down and grabs a wooden sword. No warm-up, no hello. Just a blur of motion and impact. One of the boys hits the ground with a surprised oof. The other backs away, blinking. Alexander doesn't smile. He doesn't gloat. He helps the first boy up, then says, next time, block low. Still 11. The general is already in there, waiting, stretching. Back in his room, there's a strange little shrine, not to gods, not exactly, but to figures. Achilles, Heracles, warriors who bled into myth. He's reading about them constantly, memorizing their battles, their flaws, their deaths. At dinner, he talks about them like cousins. You realize he's building a mirror, one polished with legend, and he wants to step into it. He's obsessed with Achilles, by the way. Not just the fighting. Though yes, the spear skills are cool, but the idea of glory, of living in a way that makes people talk long after you're gone, even if it means not living long at all. And here's a weird little detail you probably didn't learn in school. He slept with a copy of Homer's Iliad under his pillow, annotated in the original Greek, because bedtime stories just weren't intense enough, apparently. Later that week, his father, King Philip, comes home from a battle. Victory, but not clean. He's bleeding from a thigh wound. Soldiers cheer. Trumpets blast. Alexander barely blinks. He walks right up, looks at the bandage, and says, "You shouldn't have turned your back on the hill archers." Philip laughs, loud, the kind of laugh that makes people flinch. Then he tousles the boy's hair and says, "One day, you'll lead them better." But his eyes say something else. Pride, yes, but also a flicker of fear. Because it's already happening. The boy's not waiting to grow up. He's already stepping forward, faster than anyone can stop him. That night, alone in his room, he lights a small candle, opens that battered copy of the Iliad, runs his fingers over the part where Achilles refuses to fight. And you see it. His eyes narrow. He doesn't understand it. "Why stop fighting just because you're angry?" he whispers. Then, after a pause, "I'd never stop." And right then, you believe him. You sit with him in the quiet. Outside, crickets hum. The palace settles. Somewhere, a dog barks once and stops. And the boy with fire in his veins and stars in his skull keeps reading. The candle flickers. The pages turn. And behind him, history begins to breathe faster. You don't notice the shift at first. The room darkens. The air thickens. A trumpet echoes in the distance. Faint, then louder, then gone. And just like that, you're not with the boy anymore. You're with the soldier, not fully grown, not yet. 16, maybe 17. Shoulders still deciding if they want to be broad. But his eyes already carry the weight of 50 campaigns. You're on a hill, overlooking a battlefield, somewhere near Chaeronea. The grass is yellow, trampled. The sky threatens rain, but nothing falls. Not yet. Historians still debate whether he commanded the cavalry that day, or simply rode as a figurehead. But either way, one fact is clear. This was his first real war. Not a training yard, not a scroll. This was blood and steel and screaming men who didn't come back. You crouch beside him. His armor's a little too polished. His sword doesn't have enough dents, but his knuckles are white around the reins. He knows what's coming. Across the plain, the sacred band of Thebes, elite, devoted, famous not just for their skill, but their bond, pairs of lovers fighting side by side, believing that love makes you fight harder. Alexander doesn't hate them. Actually, he respects them, but he knows what he's here to do. He looks at his father, King Philip, further down the ridge, giving orders with a finger snap and a half-drunk snarl. And then he looks at the enemy, his first real enemy. When the horn sounds, he doesn't hesitate. He charges. The horse pounds beneath you like a war drum. Dust kicks up like smoke. Everything is loud and hot and stupid and fast. And then, somehow, silence. The moment before impact, that breath before the blade hits something that bleeds. He doesn't flinch. You wish you could say he felt heroic. But honestly, he felt alive. The kind of alive you only get when death brushes past you, but chooses someone else. He cuts, deflects, screams someone else's name. A man falls, another charges, and for the first time in his life, he understands. Glory smells like iron, and fear, and wet earth. Hours later, it's over. Victory. His father wins. Macedonia celebrates. But Alexander isn't smiling. He walks the field after, quiet, alone. The sun is setting, casting everything in gold that feels too soft for the carnage. And that's when it happens. He stumbles, not over a body, over a necklace, a simple bronze token. He kneels, brushes aside dirt. It's two figures holding hands, a lover's charm. He realizes who it belonged to. The sacred band didn't retreat. They died where they stood, together. And that does something to him. That night, there's a feast, roasted meat, dancing, drunken shouting. But Alexander barely touches his food. He keeps seeing those two bodies, curled toward each other, like they were trying to become one thing again before the end. You sit beside him on the palace steps. He doesn't notice you. He's staring at his hands, the same hands that held the sword. They were brave, he says softly, braver than the men who killed them. Then he laughs, just once, a short, bitter sound. My father will never understand that, and there it is, the first real crack, the split between who he's expected to be and who he actually is. You follow him down the hall to his quarters. The servants have lit the lamps. The room is warm, familiar, but he doesn't go inside. He walks past it, out into the night, barefoot, no guards, no weapons, just a boy walking into the dark, hoping to make sense of what he just did. You walk with him, silent. The stars are bright tonight. He looks up. I thought I'd feel stronger. You don't answer. He wouldn't hear you anyway. In his head, the battle is still playing. In his heart, something has shifted. This wasn't about strategy. This was about cost. And Alexander, he doesn't forget costs. He stores them, catalogs them, tucks them away in the vault behind his ribs where victories go to rust. Later, much later, when the world calls him ruthless, when cities fall and rivers run red, they'll say he never mourned anything. But you'll know better, because you were there. The first night he realized that winning can feel worse than losing. The next memory tastes like iron and grapes. You're back in Macedon. The weather feels sharp, like the sky itself has been holding its breath. You follow Alexander into a crowded hall, candles flickering, musicians playing something that's trying too hard to be cheerful. It's a wedding, but not his. It's his father's. Philip, the king, is getting remarried to a much younger woman, which isn't unusual for kings or problematic uncles. But this one is Macedonian. That's the issue, because Alexander's mother, Olympias, is not. She's a Pyrote, and more importantly, she's watching from the far end of the hall, like a lioness with hurt feelings and a long memory. You sit beside Alexander as he nurses a cup of wine with the patience of a cornered wolf. His jaw tightens with every toast, every mention of pure bloodline, every drunken comment about future heirs. then it happens. One of the guests stands, a nobleman, too drunk, too proud, too loud. He raises his goblet and says, "May the gods grant us a legitimate heir from this true Macedonian queen." The room freezes, music stumbles, wine spills, even the servants hold their breath. Alexander doesn't blink. He stands, slowly, calmly. Then he throws his goblet straight into the man's face. And in case that wasn't clear enough, he follows it with, "So, I'm a bastard now?" Historians debate how planned or spontaneous this outburst was. Some think Alexander used the moment. Others believe he snapped. Either way, the message is clear. You want to replace me? You'd better do it fast. Philip charges over, face red, fists clenched, limping slightly from an old wound, and tries to draw his sword. But he trips, falls, lands hard, and doesn't get up right away. Alexander doesn't move, just stares down at him and says, "You can't even cross a room without falling, and you think you can cross an empire?" Then he leaves. That night, he packs to leave Macedon entirely. He's had enough of court, of politics, of being treated like a threat and a backup plan at the same time. But just as he's about to ride off into dramatic exile, everything changes. Philip is dead, assassinated, in public, by one of his own bodyguards. Theories still swirl. Was Olympias behind it? Was Alexander involved? Was it just a lover's revenge? No one knows. But here's what you do know. One day, Alexander is a problem. The next, he is the king. You follow him into the royal chamber. He stands over the crown like it's still warm. Everyone around him is quiet, unsure. And for a moment, just a moment, he hesitates. He thinks about his father, about the shadow he'll never outrun, about the blood still staining the floor, about the fact that the throne he now sits on is made of vengeance, not ceremony. Then he sits, back straight, eyes forward. And just like that, he's not Alexander, son of Philip, anymore. He's Alexander of Macedon, king of kings in waiting. The next few days are a storm. You watch him put down rebellions before they can finish boiling. You watch him ride fast, city to city, village to village, not to punish, but to appear. To remind them, I'm here, I'm real, I'm faster than fear, and they believe him. He visits the Oracle of Delphi, demands prophecy. The priestess refuses, says it's not the right time. So what does he do? He grabs her by the arm, gently-ish, and drags her to the temple door. And she shouts, maybe in protest, maybe in fate, "You are invincible, my son." He lets go, smiles. That'll do. You're not sure if he believes her, but he certainly acts like it. And that's the real shift, because now it's not just about proving he's worthy of his father's name. Now it's about being greater. The idea begins to take root, not just conquering neighboring tribes, but Persia, the empire that once humiliated Greece, the empire of Darius. You see him staring at a map late at night, tracing roads, mountains, river crossings. He whispers, "They don't think I'll do it." Then louder, "They don't think I can." And suddenly you realize he's already halfway there. The air changes again, hotter now, drier. You can taste dust on your tongue before you even see the sand. You're not in Macedon anymore. You're standing on a foreign shore, sunlight blazing, banners snapping, horses twitching under the scent of salt and sweat. Welcome to Asia Minor. Alexander has crossed the Hellespont with 37,000 troops in a ship full of dreams. And no backup plan. Seriously. Some historians say he brought less than 2 months' worth of supplies. Others believe he expected the land itself to feed him. Either way, it wasn't caution. It was commitment. He steps off the boat in his signature dramatic fashion, throws a spear into the sand, then announces the land is now his, by right of conquest. It's not clear if the locals heard him, but it definitely impressed the troops. He doesn't pause, doesn't wait. He marches inland, fast and lean, like a flame looking for fuel. First stop, the ruins of Troy. Yeah, that Troy. He kneels by Achilles' grave, places a wreath, murmurs something soft, too soft to catch. Probably thanks. Maybe a promise. He spends the night there, surrounded by whispers. One soldier swears he saw Alexander speaking into the wind. Another says he heard armor clinking when no one was near. Alexander doesn't confirm or deny, just smiles in the morning and sharpens his sword. You march with him now, through villages that don't know his name, past cities that will remember it forever. Every step forward is a gamble. He's deep in enemy territory. His fleet is fragile. His food line is thin. And still, he burns the boats. Not literally, but close. He sends most of the Navy home. Tells his generals there's no going back. You wonder, was it courage? Or did he just know himself too well? Sometimes you need to trap your future in front of you. At the river Granicus, the Persians are waiting. Their numbers? Bigger. Their cavalry? Better. Their confidence? Unshakable. Until he charges. Yes, he charges across a river, uphill, into a rain of arrows. Because of course he does. His own men hesitate. But Alexander rides straight in, helmet gleaming, cloak flying, like he's part myth, part madness. He nearly dies. A Persian swings for his head. The blow connects, splits his helmet. Blood runs down his face. A general named Clytus saves him at the last second, cutting the attacker down with one wild strike. Alexander doesn't fall. He doesn't even pause. He presses forward, bleeding, roaring, unstoppable. And the Persians break. You'd think this would humble him. It doesn't. It transforms him. After Granicus, city after city surrenders. Some out of fear, others out of hope. Because Alexander does something unexpected. He doesn't burn everything. He spares civilians. He honors local gods. He speaks to their elders with actual respect. And that's confusing. Because it's not what they were told to expect. He's not just a conqueror. He's becoming something else. One night, around a campfire, you hear him talking to his men. No speech, just quiet thoughts. I don't want to rule over ruins, he says. I want to build something that lasts. Someone jokes, like a pyramid? He smiles. No, bigger. And maybe he means it. He starts wearing Persian robes, takes local guides into his inner circle, learns names, traditions, customs, not to mock them, to understand them. And now, his soldiers are confused. They followed a Macedonian king. But who is this man, this silk-wrapped, sandal-wearing visionary who still fights like a thunderbolt? The doubts begin. Whispers, is he losing his roots, or just digging deeper? You catch him one night, alone, writing by lantern light. His hand trembles slightly from exhaustion, but his eyes are wide open, focused. He's drawing a road across the desert, connecting east and west. Not just an empire, he whispers, a bridge. Then he looks at the stars, and you hear him ask them, will they remember me as a tyrant? Maybe. Will they remember me at all? You smell dust before you see it. Fine, dry, ancient. It clings to your throat like memory. You're on the plain of Gaugamela now, so flat it could be mistaken for a map someone forgot to draw mountains on. The sky above is too blue, the land below too wide, and in between them, waiting, is Persia. Not just a city, not just a post, but the entire empire, standing, breathing, ready. This is Darius, not the idea, not the whisper, the man, the king of kings. Scholars still argue whether Gaugamela was Alexander's greatest victory or Darius's greatest mistake. But as you look out across the battlefield, what you see is this: a chessboard, already bloodstained, and Alexander, he's walking through his troops, not yelling, not pacing, just passing. Like he's checking on each soul. He knows what's about to happen. And unlike Granicus, this isn't a gamble. This is a reckoning. He stops near a standard bearer whose hands are shaking. The boy can't be more than 19. His lip is cracked. He tries to stand straighter. Alexander doesn't scold. He just says, the earth trembles for everyone, but you're still standing. That's what matters, and walks on. It's early morning when it begins. The Persians stretch wider than the eye can follow. Hundreds of thousands, by some accounts. Chariots with blades on the wheels, elephants, drums, shields as tall as men. They outnumber Alexander's forces at least 5 to 1. His advisors urge caution. He nods politely, then rides out alone. His horse, yes, Bucephalus again, snorts once, then settles. Like they've rehearsed this moment in another life. And as the sun rises, Alexander draws a long breath and gives the signal. Not the one they expect. He feints left, then splits right. A sudden, jagged maneuver, cutting across the battlefield diagonally. Confusion ripples. The Persians hesitate, and in that single, beautiful hesitation, Alexander finds the crack. He punches through the line like lightning through the glass, straight toward Darius. And for a moment, a brief, terrifying moment, the Persian king sees him coming. They lock eyes, and Darius runs, leaves his army, leaves his chariot, leaves behind his crown. And just like that, the unthinkable happens. Alexander doesn't chase. He lets him go. You hear the men whispering, why not finish it? Why not end him? But Alexander, he's already dismounting, walking the battlefield, checking the wounded, giving water. He finds the Persian royal family's camp. Sisters, mother, even Darius's young son. They bow in fear. He bows back. Don't be afraid, he says. You've lost a battle, not your dignity. And that's the moment he wins something bigger than territory. He wins hearts. The army is quiet that night. They've won. But it doesn't feel like it used to. It's too large, too costly, too lonely. Alexander walks alone through the camp. You follow, of course. He stops near a soldier's tent. Inside, someone is weeping. He doesn't interrupt, just stands there, silent, then moves on. He climbs a ridge overlooking the plain, looks out at what used to be a kingdom, and says softly, "Victory always looks better on a map." You sit beside him. The stars are out. They don't blink. You wonder if he feels taller now. He doesn't. He feels heavier. Bucephalus rests nearby, tail flicking at flies. Still the one soul Alexander trusts, with silence. He turns to you. Well, not you exactly, but the air beside him, and says, "Do you think I'm still a son?" You don't answer. He nods, as if you did. Back at the tents, the men drink, laugh, talk about gold and glory. But here, under the open sky, Alexander is counting something else. The cost of being believed, the weight of having no one left to outrun, and the terrible knowledge that this impossible victory will be remembered longer than he will. You hear wind first, soft, dry, layered with the hush of sand moving against stone. You're in Egypt now, not the Egypt of tourists and postcards, but the ancient one, still golden, still watching, still whispering to men who think they can rewrite eternity. Alexander arrives not as a conqueror, but as a guest. That's what he tells them. And strangely enough, that's what they believe. Memphis opens its gates. The priests bow, the crowds cheer, the cats blink once and go back to whatever mysterious business cats were doing 2,000 years ago. And Alexander? He smiles. He doesn't burn the temples. He funds their repairs. He prays to their gods. He even sacrifices to Apis, the sacred bull, and means it. You're starting to realize he doesn't want to erase what he finds. He wants to become part of it. But Egypt does something to him, slows his step, softens his voice, makes him think in riddles instead of orders. He spends hours by the Nile, watching the water move, asking strange questions. Do you think rivers remember? Or, if a god dies in silence, was he ever divine? You don't have answers, but Egypt might. He decides to make a detour to the Siwa oasis. It's not convenient. It's not strategic. It's a journey through empty desert under burning sun with no guarantee of water or welcome. But he insists, and so you ride with him, day after day across silence. The desert is brutal, unforgiving. Men hallucinate. Horses collapse. One guide goes missing, found later muttering about voices in the rocks. Still, Alexander presses on, and finally, out of the dunes, the oracle rises. The temple of Amun, half sandstone, half myth, and the priests are waiting. They do not bow. They nod, slowly, like they were expecting him long before he was born. He goes inside alone. You wait. Hours pass. The wind circles. The sun lowers. The guards fidget. You think you hear a voice, but it might be the desert playing tricks again. Finally, he emerges. No fanfare, no scroll, no explanation. Just a single look. Wide-eyed, distant, almost glowing. Someone asks him what the oracle said. He answers softly, "A secret between me and the god." To this day, no one knows exactly what he heard. Some say the oracle called him the son of Zeus. Others say he asked if all his enemies had been defeated, and the god said yes. What's certain is this: he was different when he came out. More quiet, more distant, more convinced of something no one else could see. Back in camp, he starts referring to Zeus Ammon as father, and himself not as king, but as something larger. Not quite divine, but not quite human either. And here's the strange thing. People begin to believe him because he believes it first, not as arrogance, but as key inevitability. The man who tamed the horse, who never lost a battle, who crossed deserts and broke empires and spared children and spoke softly to gods. Why wouldn't he be chosen? Still, not everyone is convinced. Parmenion, his old general, whispers, "Great men don't need to be gods." Alexander doesn't answer, but within a year, Parmenion will be dead, and the whispers will get quieter. You watch him now, standing in the moonlight, sketching something in the sand. A circle, a grid, a harbor. He's drawing a city, one that will bear his name. Alexandria, not a fortress. A crossroads of thought, of trade, of people who speak in 10 tongues and eat 10 different breakfasts. He talks about libraries and lighthouses and museums, about knowledge you can hold, light you can guide with. It's not conquest, it's architecture of legacy. You realize something strange. He isn't afraid of death. He's afraid of being misunderstood. And so, brick by brick, city by city, vision by vision, he carves his meaning into the world, like if he writes it large enough, loud enough, long enough. Time itself will remember. That night, as he stands over the first stones of Alexandria, you hear him whisper, "Let them build pyramids. I'll build memory." And somewhere, far beneath the sand, something ancient stirs. Not in warning, but in welcome. It begins at a banquet. Of course it does. You're back in Persia now, but everything feels altered. The robes are softer, the halls are wider. The air smells like saffron and something burning that isn't quite wood. Alexander sits at the head of the table, but he doesn't look comfortable. He looks like a man who's climbed too high and can't see the ground anymore. The cups are full, the toasts are endless. The laughter feels just a little too loud. He's wearing Persian silk now, a tall headdress. He's begun insisting on court rituals, proskynesis, where men bow to him like he's more than a king. Historians argue whether he truly believed he was divine at this point, or whether it was just politics. Either way, it wasn't going over well with the Macedonians, especially the old ones, especially Clitus. Clitus, the Black, veteran general, the same man who once saved Alexander's life at Granicus, the man who knew him when he was just a boy with a sharp tongue and dirt under his nails. Tonight, Clitus is drunk, very drunk, and angry. "You wear their clothes," he slurs, "but you forget your own blood." Someone tries to quiet him. Alexander waves them off. "No," he says, "let him speak." Clitus stands. and everything in the room turns brittle. He reminds Alexander of his father, of the men who died to put him on the throne. He calls him reckless, arrogant. He mocks the idea that he's divine. The silence is a knife. Then Alexander stands too. And just for a moment, you see it. Not the king, not the god. The boy, wounded, cornered. He reaches for a spear. The guards freeze. No one moves. You want to stop him, but it's too late. The spear flies. Clytus falls. And everything in the room changes. No one breathes. Alexander stares. The wine sloshes in his cup. A fly buzzes past, and then he breaks. He drops to his knees, screams, cries, tries to claw the moment out of the air, as if he can undo it with sheer regret. But it's done. The next day, he won't speak. He won't eat. He tries to take his own life. Once, maybe twice. No one knows. All they know is this. Something cracked. Not the kingdom. Him. You follow him into a garden days later. He walks slowly, like the air is thicker now. He kneels beside a fig tree, picks a leaf, crushes it, inhales. You ever notice how something sweet always has to die to smell good? He asks. You don't answer. He smiles. I didn't mean you anyway. He starts spending more time alone, reading, writing, planning, but also watching. Suspicion creeps in. Men whisper. Loyalty is questioned. Accusations are made. He executes a man for plotting. Then another. Then a whole group. Some guilty, some not. It doesn't seem to matter. The wine flows. The lists grow. He begins building a new capital. But it feels less like a city, more like a maze. Something to get lost in. He misses Hephaestion. He won't say it, but you know. The man who understood his silences is far away on a mission now. And Alexander is surrounded by echoes. One night, you catch him in the mirror, not admiring, studying, tracing his face like it's a mask. Do you think gods feel lonely? He asks, then shakes his head. Never mind. Stupid question. He tries to return to strategy, to conquest, to focus. But it's different now. Each battle feels like repetition. Each march feels longer. He wins, of course. He always wins. But now the victories feel hollow, like applause that goes on too long. You walk beside him after one such battle. He's covered in dust, not blood. The sun is setting. The men are cheering behind him. He says, they still cheer. Then, almost sadly, they don't know I'm already gone. You want to reach for him, to pull him back, but he's not sinking. He's drifting further each day, and all you can do now is follow. You hear the horses before you see them. Dust kicks up ahead, and Alexander's eyes lift, not like a king waiting for a report, but like a boy catching sight of a familiar face through a crowd. Hephaestion is back. After months apart, the two men ride toward each other like they never left. No ceremony, no fanfare, just an embrace. Not in the way generals greet, in the way halves return to each other. They don't speak much at first. They don't need to. They walk through the camp side by side, eat together, laugh, finally. Not the stiff laugh Alexander's been forcing, but something warmer, softer. Historians have argued endlessly about the nature of their bond. Lovers? Brothers? Shadows of each other? But watching them now, you realize something. Labels are too small for this. This is belonging. Hephaestion understands the silences. He doesn't flinch when Alexander changes subjects mid-sentence. Doesn't recoil when Alexander stares too long at a fire. Doesn't ask for more than what's being offered. And in return, Alexander gives him all of it. Plans, regrets, nightmares, half-finished dreams. They talk about building roads across the empire, not just for soldiers, but for teachers. They talk about carving a university into the cliffs near the Euphrates. They even talk about stopping one day, finding peace. You don't believe them, neither do they, but the thought is enough to make the night feel softer. Then it happens. Sudden, stupid, unfair. Hephaestion falls ill. It starts with a fever, then chills. The camp's physician says it's nothing, but Alexander knows better. He stays by the bed, doesn't sleep, barely eats. He wipes the sweat away himself, reads aloud, even when Hephaestion can't hear. Talks like they're in the middle of a normal day. Heal quickly, he says. I've planned too much for two people, but the body doesn't listen. Hephaestion dies, just like that, and the world tilts. You've seen Alexander bloodied. You've seen him angry, proud, victorious, betrayed. But now, he is wrecked, utterly. He tears his clothes, orders the physician executed, refuses to speak for days, doesn't ride, doesn't eat, doesn't move. The camp is paralyzed. No one knows what to say. One soldier is heard murmuring, "It was just a companion." He is exiled that same day. Alexander builds a funeral pyre taller than most temples, covers it in gold, incense, lavender, and silence. He walks behind it barefoot. Then he stops and doesn't move again until the flames die. Later, he orders shrines built in Hephaestion's name across the empire, coins stamped with his image, a new god declared. And it still isn't enough. He begins to unravel, not violently, elegantly, like silk coming loose at the hem. He talks less, sleeps less, drinks more, stares at maps for hours without blinking. He redraws borders no one asked him to, plans cities no one will live in, dreams of conquering Arabia, even as his own heart is in ruins. One night, you follow him to the edge of the camp. He stands there barefoot, looking at the stars. "People think I wanted to rule the world," he says. "I just didn't want to lose it." Then softer, "I didn't think I could lose him." The firelight behind you flickers. Somewhere, a lyre plays a soft, meandering song. Alexander doesn't cry. He's past that. Now, he simply carries it. Carries the ache like a second shadow. Carries the silence like a crown. Carries Hephaestion in every decision, every march, every unfinished sentence. You watch him speak to an empty chair at dinner. You watch him place a cup beside his own. And slowly, the men around him stop asking questions because they know the answer. He's not alone, but he'll never be whole again. The mountains look like broken teeth, jagged, snow-dusted, and older than names. You're riding with him again, east of the Indus now, past the edges of old maps, past the boundaries even the stars recognize, and still he goes on, faster, farther, like he's trying to outrun something he won't name. He doesn't smile anymore, doesn't pause when cities surrender, doesn't speak much unless he's giving orders or asking impossible questions. Do you think the world ends in cliffs? Or does it fold back in on itself like skin? You don't answer. He wouldn't hear you, because lately, Alexander listens only to the part of him that never sleeps, the part that keeps whispering, "It's not enough." Historians describe this phase of the campaign as obsessive. Endless sieges, ruthless marches, settlements popping up faster than ink can mark them. But from where you stand, it looks like someone building a monument they never intend to finish. The soldiers grow tired. They miss home. They whisper behind his back now, not insults, just confusion. Where is he going? What's left to prove? He gives them a break, briefly, lets them settle in a green valley for a while, orders new homes built, roads paved. He plants trees even. And for a moment, you think, maybe this is it. Maybe he's found his edge. But no. Soon, he's up before dawn, packing, sketching a new route, talking about the ocean at the end of the world. He's convinced it's real, and that if he reaches it, everything will make sense again. That night, you find him staring into a sapphire, his face half lit, half lost. "I thought the grief would fade," he says, "but it just changed shoes. Now it marches with me." You sit beside him. The fire pops once, like it agrees. Then, rebellion. His men refuse. Not all, but enough. They stand at the edge of the Hydaspes River, arms crossed, eyes hollow. They followed him through storms, over deserts, against elephants, through grief and madness and things that shouldn't have names. But not this, not farther. Alexander stands before them, and for once, he begs, not dramatically, not loudly, just with quiet ache. "I've led you this far," he says, "to the edge of the known world. I don't want to go alone." But they won't move. And for the first time in his life, he turns back, not in defeat, in recognition. Even empires have ceilings. He leads them south instead, through scorching jungles, monsoon rains, swamps that whisper disease in every breath. More men die here than in any battle. The maps begin to tear at the edges. Even time seems confused, days stretching long and strange, and nights collapsing into fever. You find him one morning, barefoot in a rice field, soaking wet. He laughs, really laughs, for the first time in weeks. "I was chasing the world," he says, "and it turns out it's just a garden." The moment passes, but it leaves something behind, not peace, but stillness. He lets the army rest, builds again. Another city, another Alexandria. Somewhere, back west, they're starting to wonder if he'll ever stop building these places. If maybe he's less a king and more a rumor that leaves blueprints behind. He receives envoys, offers marriages. Here's news from Babylon, of chaos, of division, of hunger for his return. And at last, he nods. He will go home. though neither of you knows yet. That home won't feel like home at all. You return to Babylon under a sun that feels different. It's warm, but not generous. Bright, but not forgiving. The city is still there. Its walls massive, its towers proud. But something in the air has shifted. The dust doesn't settle like it used to. The streets greet him with cheers, but they echo strangely, like they're bouncing off emptier hearts. Alexander rides through the gates in silence. No speech, no gold, no grand parade. He just enters, like a man returning not to triumph, but to a memory he's not sure he left intact. Inside the palace, the tapestries have been cleaned, the floors polished, but the rooms feel too quiet. The throne room waits, so does the wait. He sits again, for the first time in years. It creaks under him, and for a moment, you see him close his eyes, not to rest, but to remember what it felt like before. Before India, before Egypt, before Hephaestion. But memories don't carry the same weight as people. They sit lighter and leave colder. Historians note that in his final year, Alexander grew more erratic, more visionary, more paranoid. But you see something else. He's not unraveling. He's reaching, grasping for something that keeps moving. He calls meetings every night now, plans roads through Arabia, talks about naval fleets, trade routes, bridges between languages no one's bothered to translate yet. He dreams out loud. And no one dares tell him the empire's already stretching at the seams. Governors are betraying each other. Soldiers are hoarding grain. Coins, with his face, are being melted down into gods no one's ever heard of. But Alexander doesn't slow. He can't. One night, you find him standing on a balcony, staring into the dark, barefoot again. There's still time, he whispers. Still time to make it hold. You don't ask what it is. Even he may not know. He begins drinking more, not in celebration, in silence. Wine becomes water. Sleep becomes rumor. His words, when they come, are softer than they've ever been. He talks to empty chairs again. This time, not just Hephaestions. He sets a place for a son who isn't born yet, a queen who isn't beside him, a version of himself that never walked into so many wars. You hear the courtiers whisper. The generals watch too closely. They're waiting, not for orders, for opportunity. But Alexander doesn't notice. Or maybe he does, and doesn't care. He calls for another city, plans its walls on the floor with chalk and coins. Calls it Alexandria in the West. Then another and another. He sketches until dawn, then lays down, finally, his breath slow, one last city behind his eyelids. The next morning, he wakes with a fever. Slight at first, enough to shrug off, but it lingers, grows. By the second day, he can't stand. By the third, he can't speak. And Babylon holds its breath. You sit beside the bed. He gestures weakly, tries to lift his hand. They bring his generals in. He looks at them, one by one. And someone asks, "To whom do you leave your empire?" He tries to answer, but no one hears. Some say he whispered, "To the strongest." Others swear he said nothing at all. But you know, what he left behind wasn't a name, it was momentum. He dies without thunder, no lightning, no final speech. Just a soft exhale and the faint scent of fig leaves in the room. No city mourns loud enough. No crown fits right afterward. No map holds still again. The throne doesn't move. It just sits there. Stone and gold, silent and patient, as if daring someone to try. You're in the palace again. The air is still heavy, not with incense or politics, but with absence. Alexander is gone, but his echo, still pacing the halls. No one knows what to do. The generals, once sharp, once fearless, now speak in quiet bursts, like they're afraid the walls might be listening. You watch them gather around the throne. They don't sit on it, they circle it, like it might bite. Historians call this the Wars of the Successors, a polite name for chaos, because Alexander didn't name a clear heir. His son hasn't been born yet. His half-brother has a soft mind. And his army? They want answers. Now, one general clears his throat. We should wait for Roxana to give birth. Another snaps. And let the unborn rule the living? The first replies. Then what would he have wanted? Silence. No one really knows. Because Alexander had always been the answer, not the question. And now, the empire stretches from the Adriatic to the Himalayas, and no one is holding the center. You follow Ptolemy out of the room. He doesn't argue, doesn't yell. He just walks out of the palace, past the gardens, to the stables. He looks west. And you know what he's thinking. Egypt. He's not going to wait for a decision. He's going to make one. A few days later, you learn something strange. The body is missing. Alexander's. Gone. Taken. Rumors fly like arrows. Some say Ptolemy stole it. Others say it was moved for protection. A few whisper it walked away on its own. What's certain is this. It ends up in Alexandria, in a golden sarcophagus, in a city named for its architect. And the throne in Babylon? Still empty. The generals begin carving, not statues. The world. They divide the empire like it's a banquet. Each takes a slice. Each swears they'll keep it whole. They don't. Fights break out. Brothers turn on brothers. Old friends meet at battlefields, not tables. You ride with Seleucus now, east, toward Persia. Then with Cassander, west, toward Macedon. Then Lysimachus, then Antigonus. Names blur, faces sharpen. The map begins to bleed. Cities fall, coins change. Statues are pulled down, then put back up with different noses. And the people, they survive. Because they have to. Because gods die. But bakers still bake. Mothers still hush babies. Soldiers still eat when they can. One day, you pass through a town square where two men are arguing about taxes. One of them points to a crumbling bust of Alexander. Would he have let this happen? The man says. The other shrugs. He's not here, is he? And that's the wound no one can name. He was everything. So now nothing feels right. No one throne, no one king. Just ambition, wearing too many faces. You walk through what used to be an empire. Doesn't feel shattered, just echoing. And everywhere you go, someone says his name. Sometimes with reverence, sometimes with anger, sometimes just to prove they were here when he passed through. But always, always, it stirs something. Because whether they loved him or feared him, no one has forgotten him. And no one really knows how to live in a world without him. Not yet. You hear the hooves before anything else. Steady, purposeful, familiar, even after all this time. Bucephalus, Alexander's horse. Not just a mount, not just a symbol, but a witness to every charge, every storm, every city that surrendered too fast or too late. The horse that no one could tame, except one boy who understood fear wasn't the enemy, just a shadow facing the wrong way. And now he walks slower, not from weakness, but from weight. Because Bucephalus is carrying more than Alexander. He's carrying memory. They're in India now, near the river Hephaestion, and it's hot, thick monsoon heat, the kind that makes even the gods sweat. The enemy is unlike anything they've faced. War elephants, 10 feet tall, armored, screaming. Bucephalus doesn't flinch. Of course not. He's been through worse. They line up at dawn. Alexander mounts. The soldiers watch, whisper. Some say the horse is too old. Some say the king should ride something faster. Alexander doesn't answer. He just touches the side of Bucephalus's neck. That's the answer. The battle begins like thunder, swallowed by fire. The elephants charge. Alexander splits the formation, classic misdirection, then punches into their flank. Bucephalus moves like a ghost, dodging, kicking, surging forward. Alexander fights like he's trying to make the sky jealous, but it's not an easy fight. Hours pass. The field is chaos, and then Bucephalus stumbles, just for a moment, but Alexander feels it. He dismounts, sees the wound, a spear just under the rib, deep, bleeding slow but steady. Bucephalus doesn't collapse. He stands, proud. Alexander places a hand over the wound, whispers something only they understand. He doesn't ride again that day. He walks beside his horse, through the battlefield, past the cheers, past the silence. Later, in camp, he stays with him, refuses food, refuses sleep, just stays. And Bucephalus, he rests, breath slowing, ears twitching with effort. And at dawn, he dies. Not in battle, in stillness. Alexander doesn't speak. For a long time, he just sits, head down, hand on the warm, silent neck of the only soul that never bowed to him and never needed to. Some say he wept openly. Others say he cursed the gods. Some claim he stood and ordered a city to be built immediately. What's true is this. He named it Bucephala. It still exists. A city for a horse. Because how else do you bury something that carried your whole legend on its back? That night, he walks alone. You follow, of course. He stops at the edge of camp, looks up at the stars. They think it was just a horse, he says. Then, after a long pause, but I never would have made it without him. And you realize, he doesn't just mean the wars. He means the boy, the one who learned patience, trust, balance, the one who faced fear by riding straight into it, the one who remembered where he started, even when the whole world forgot. Bucephalus didn't just carry a king, he made one. It starts with a shiver, not a storm, not a rebellion, just a chill. You're in Babylon again. The city waits like a held breath. And Alexander, He's tired. Not in the way soldiers get tired, not even in the way kings do. This is different. He drags his feet now, just slightly. His voice fades in the middle of sentences. He wakes from dreams that leave him staring at walls like they owe him an apology. And yet, he still plans, still sketches, still speaks of roads, fleets, bridges, a unified currency, a school where philosophers from every city can teach together. One world. That's the phrase he keeps using. One world, many languages, same dream. But the fever grows. Some say it started after a banquet. Others say it was already inside him, waiting. No one agrees. Not even now. He sweats through the night, mumbles in half Greek, half something else. Sometimes you hear names: Hephaestion, Bucephalus, Achilles. Other times, silence. The generals gather, quiet, anxious. They argue behind curtains. About succession, about safety, about who should carry the ring if the hand goes cold. You sit at the edge of the bed. He turns to you, eyes glazed but still, burning. "Did I do enough?" he whispers. "You want to lie." But he answers himself. "I don't know what enough feels like anymore." He reaches out, not for a crown, not for a sword, just for a memory. And when he doesn't find one, he closes his hand. 3 more days pass. He can no longer stand. The royal court walks on tiptoe. The soldiers outside the palace kneel when the Beys pass his window. They don't know what else to do. Some still think he'll rise again. He always has. He broke walls. He crossed deserts. He walked through entire empires with nothing but fire in his eyes and a map in his head. But not this time. On the 10th day, the fever wins. His breath slows, and the world pauses. Someone asks him in a whisper, "To whom do you leave the empire?" He tries to speak. They lean closer. Some say he said, "To the strongest." Others say he smiled and said nothing at all. Some say he tried to name everyone and couldn't finish the list. But you were there, and what you heard wasn't a name. It was a sigh, soft, final, like someone laying down a burden that had no shape, but all the weight in the world. He dies with no crown on his head, no sword in his hand, just an empire too wide to hold. The generals freeze. They don't know if they should cry or bow or measure the body for transport. You stay. Not because you have to, because you're the only one not thinking about what comes next. You're just thinking about the boy who tamed a wild horse, who whispered to stars, who dreamed in city plans, who wanted to be Achilles, but ended up becoming something else entirely. A question no one could answer. You hear birds outside. The city is waking up. Soon there will be division, civil war, splintered loyalties, coins with his face still pressed into metal, but carrying no soul behind the eyes. But for this moment, this quiet, final moment, it's just him, not the king, not the god, just Alexander, gone. The empire is quiet, not peaceful, just waiting. Alexander is dead, and yet, somehow, more present than ever. His body lies in a golden sarcophagus, in a city he founded but never ruled. His name is whispered in markets, shouted in war camps, written into songs by people who never saw his face. His generals divide his world like gamblers at a broken table. each one claiming a piece, each one saying he would have wanted it that way. But you know better. He wouldn't have wanted any of this. Not the carving, not the betrayals, not the way his name is now being used to justify every ambition under the sun. Still, there are children learning of him, not through fear, through awe, through bedtime stories told by candlelight, of a boy who tamed a wild horse, crossed the world, and asked stars for permission instead of kings. Historians still argue about what he said, what he meant, whether he truly saw himself as divine or just terribly, tragically human. They debate his legacy, his cruelty, his vision, his flaws. They draw new maps, new timelines, new theories. But here's what doesn't change. He moved the center of gravity. After him, empires tried to be him. Leaders compared themselves to him. Poets wrote odes not just to his victories, but to the silence he left behind. In Egypt, his tomb becomes a shrine. Julius Caesar visits it centuries later. So does Augustus. Even Caligula tries to steal his cloak. Napoleon dreams of him. So do young men with stars in their eyes and dust on their boots. Alexander becomes less a person and more a possibility. An idea you carry into battle, into books, into whatever stretch of land you think still needs conquering. But the real question isn't where he went, it's where he remains. And that's not in cities, not in coins, not in statues slowly worn down by wind and rain. It's in the questions he asked. Is it enough? What comes next? What do I leave behind? And if you're quiet enough, just quiet enough to hear your own heartbeat, you might hear him again. Not in thunder, in whisper, softer than history, stronger than marble, still riding, still reaching, still somewhere, on the far edge of the map. And that's the end of our journey. What's left will unfold, memory by memory, breath by breath. If tonight stirred something in you, I hope you'll like the video and subscribe to help this story find others who dream restlessly in the dark. And please, leave me a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is right now. I'd love to know where this old dream is drifting tonight. Sleep well, and I'll see you in the next story.